Sale, your host with the most. Sorry about that. I had a little bit of issue. It's a human issue, and by that I mean other people not respecting what I ask. Anyway, I am back, and let's start with this because it's something that everybody needs to know. How to get away with murder, subverting genre expectations, game developers of color exposition. Apparently now, the skin color denotes like some sort of tokenism. I mean, that's all. Because I don't see what does that has to do with anything. Does it matter if your skin is dark or white? No. It doesn't give you a +5 intelligence or anything. All right, here it is. Cameron Wild. How to get away with murder, subverting genre.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to attend or watch this talk.
Okay, right at the start, what is the first thing you notice about this guy? Pompous, annoying, they, them. What is they, them? It's a single person. Use correct grammar. I will call him a he, him, but I think it fits him better.
How to Get Away with Murder, Subverting Genre Expectations.
Look at him. He is literally unable to articulate anything from his own mind. Like, literally, he's just reading a script. It's pathetic. He has literally zero oration skills. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at a camera or not. I mean, you can just look at his eyes.
My name is Cameron Wild, and
Look at his smile, first of all. His smile looks forced. He is using a lot of lip balm. Why?
I'm a narrative designer
Narrative designer, so that means a lie creator.
and sensitivity reader with a company.
Sensitivity reader. What? Is too pussy to accept how things are, and they have to be tailored for people, otherwise they're gonna get offended. And oh my God, we cannot have that. People being offended. Oh God, my heart bleeds for you. I want to play this world's smallest violin. You know what? I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to do exactly that. But not right now.
Company called Sweet Baby Inc., based out of so-called Montreal.
Sweet Baby Inc. out of so-called Montreal. What do you mean so-called? That's the name. I mean, this guy can't even do whatever he is doing correctly. I mean, he comes off as pedantic, annoying. Like, even if I didn't hate the woke mentality, just listening to the way he speaks, it's just grating to the nerves.
These are some of my co-workers. We specialize
Co-workers are more like industry destroyers, but you do you do. You do you, we guess.
in narrative development, which means working with teams on everything from script writing to narrative direction, casting, to cultural consultation. And
Okay, hold on. What?
to narrative direction, casting, to cultural consultation.
What do you need consultation for culture? Who are you to say anything about any culture? You people literally destroy cultures. You pervert them. Narrative consultation. Why do we need a narrative consultator?
And we do it with a focus on inclusion, but also
Inclusion, right there, that word. Is there a need for inclusion in games? No, you don't. Why? Because nobody deserves being included in everything or in anything. A person can decide whatever they want to or not. If you feel offended because you don't feel represented in a game or in any sort of media, that's your problem. Go to your mom and suck on her tits because you don't belong here. Nobody owes you anything. But these kind of people, they believe that they should and they have to kowtow to them. I disagree, to put it mildly.
also on creating joy through storytelling.
How many games have brought joy that are SBI infected?
So as for my own story, I took a really long and scenic route to my current role. I studied acting, worked
Literally, he cannot do this thing without reading from his script in the screen.
International Film Board
You can tell from his eyes. Look, his eyes are looking down at the screen. You can tell that. Everything he's reading is reading from this. Hi, I'm Cameron Wild.
of Canada. I toiled in data mines at a giant software company, and I even did two tours at
Two tours like it's war. Oh my God, that poor precious thing. How my heart bleeds for you. Oh God.
film school, which is two more times than I would recommend anyone attend. But
Yet you did two more times. What does that say about you?
sometimes you only know you've made a mistake until after it's happened, and sometimes you only know once you've made it twice.
So you didn't learn from your first mistake, and you decided, yes, I have to do another mistake again, and it's gonna be the same one.
But all of that taught me a lot about how to structure a story, what makes a story engaging, and maybe more importantly, how not to structure stories, which isn't to say that you ever really learn anything, but it's been helpful as I
You didn't learn anything, but it's helpful. That is the definition of learning. So you also suck as a writer or a storyteller.
started to really navigate through the games industry.
Navigate, you mean sync battleships of games and intellectual properties?
Because the stories we tell each other are way more than entertainment.
No, stories are entertaining. That's the definition for stories. That's what they were made for, to entertain. They can also be used to illustrate some stuff, such as education or other purposes.
They're how we create, debate, and preserve our collective values and beliefs.
What values and beliefs? You people destroy those things. You don't care about any beliefs other than your own. If anybody tells you no, you will act like somebody just murdered your mother and desecrated it in front of everybody at the wake.
Unequipped to tell. And when I say unequipped to tell, I
You're not unequipped to tell a story. You're just not fully prepared to do that. You can do it after you practice a bit. Who are you to tell who is and who isn't equipped? Your whole spiel so far, it sounds like you're spewing crap out of your mouth. Literally.
don't mean in terms of resourcing. I mean creative people or teams who want to tell a story, they don't have the identity, perspective, experience, or empathy to tell.
What kind of experience do you have? Like just being black? Newsflash, that's not really relevant at all. You weren't there back in the Jim Crow era. You weren't there back in the plantation era. And you sure as hell weren't there when other African nations were slaving each other and selling them to white people as well, and among each other. So, what kind of cultural relevance does you being black bring into the table?
Tell. And who don't want to feel the discomfort that arises when they realize they've reached the limits of their abilities.
That's literally how you can grow your abilities. Like this guy, how is he working as a professional in this? Like like no fooling. How is he? Like literally everything he's saying is just BS and nothing he's talking about comes from within. Everything is perfectly written on his screen and he's just reading a verbatim with just minor alterations.
I'm sure you've met many people who are uncomfortable being told that not every story is theirs to own.
That's literally what you're doing right now. I mean, doesn't he realize how much of a pedantic a-hole he's being here? I mean, look at his condescending tone. I'm not even making it up. Like, people in chat, come on, hold on. These kind of people, they have like zero um, self-perception of what they're doing.
And I can sympathize. Any of us can sympathize with the experience of being uncomfortable or afraid. But
No, because there's different ways of being uncomfortable and afraid.
I can't sympathize with the idea that discomfort is an acceptable reason not to do better.
You literally said the opposite.
Because a lot of us who are really fighting for more inclusive games and
We don't need, nobody's fighting for inclusivity but you, or rather, people like you. We don't care about inclusivity. Do you know why? Because we don't care if a character is homosexual. We don't care if it's a transsexual. We don't care if they are transgender or whatever the hell you wanted. Just make it make sense within the game. Don't just like, oh, this character, we should make it trans because representation. You don't need to change a character that's already been established. However, you people like to take characters and change it. A very good show of this will be the BBC's Doctor Who, or a lot of BBC's programming where they change a lot of historical people's races just because we don't want to insult other people. Like literally, there is no need for that kind of crap in here. Tell the story how it is. If you want to do something revolutionary, make your own stuff. Don't use other people's intellectual property and run them to the ground. You have single-handedly ruined a lot of video game companies just for your inclusivity alone. It doesn't generate money, it doesn't generate goodwill. What are you doing? And why you're doing it, I do not know, nor do I care. I just don't want you anywhere near my stuff. I am not asking, I am telling you.
storytelling don't have a choice when it comes to discomfort. A lot of us who are just existing don't have a choice.
No, you're not just existing, you're making it everybody else's problem. You can exist in your own isolation bubble and not have to deal with us regular people, but you decided to make it a problem to us by telling us how we should feel, what we should do, and how to do it. Nobody tells you how to live your life. Don't tell us how to play our games. But if you come over for our games and then you receive backlash, then that's on you. You're the one that was looking for it.
Choice, which makes this really hard often. But recently, I've started realizing that discomfort, or the place where whiteness doesn't have to live,
Ah, there we go. So he hates white people. So he's one of those people. Hold on, let me check something about this guy. He is, where am I? Right here, 354.
is where some company called Hi everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to
Cameron Wild. Okay, let's see a little bit about this guy. Okay. Uh-huh. Cameron Wild. He is now working at movie games. South of Midnight. That explains a lot. After Love EP. Ugh. Capes. Never heard of it. Tales of Kinsura Zhao. Never heard of it. Narrative Consultation. Oh, fucking course he is. Alan Wake 2. Narrative Consultation. Oh, freaking course. That explains a lot. The Crew Motorfest. Proofreading. What? Kingdom and 80s additional writing. God of War Ragnarok. Ugh, that explains a lot. Full credits. Hmm. Well, he's worked on those things. He has. These are the collaborators here. Oh, Chris Kindred. Oh, yeah, that guy. Hold on. He's still working? This guy shouldn't be working anywhere near video games. Validate. Yeah, that is a crap game. Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. Oh, of course he was a writer there. These people, they just ruin everything. Okay, let's see. They work with Sweet Baby Inc. in 8 games, Epic Games 4, Nvidia Corporation 3 games, for most interactive, Bulb, Goodbye Kansas, uh Unity Studio. Okay, biography. Okay, so yeah, uh-huh. All right. So we have already like what it is.
Were some of the best stories. So I call this talk How to Get Away with Murder because when you do genre well, it's about going deep into that well of discomfort and telling a story that has teeth and pushes boundaries and
You don't need that kind of stuff to do that, though.
allows a kind of emotional resonance best described as visceral. And these are the kind of stories that make me feel real.
You're as real as the concept of humanity that you have. Like literally, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. He just cares about himself. Everything he's been saying is me, 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 me. But it's never about the audience, it's just him. He only cares how he feels.
Okay. Now, when I talk about genre storytelling, what do I mean?
What do you mean?
I mean horror, sci-fi, fantasy, westerns, that kind of thing. And when I'm looking at media that relies heavily on tropes, cinematic conventions, and predetermined narrative arcs. And I know that's kind of a fuzzy definition of a fuzzy term, but that's also the point.
It's not a fuzzy definition for a fuzzy term. That's literally the definition for the term.
It's that often you don't know genre until you feel it.
Or you can just read the genre that says that what the movie or thing that you're watching, experiencing is.
And as such, some of the most resonant experiences for me of seeing myself on screen and feeling really
Seeing myself on screen. See, once more, he is talking about himself, not about others, himself or itself. Please note how many times he used first person and refers to himself rather than to any other people.
accurately perceived has been through genre cinema. For example, I don't think that I've ever had a theater going experience like the one I had when I saw Get Out. And I know it took me just like a couple of minutes to mention Get Out. I think we
Oh, God.
all knew it had to happen. I love Jordan Peele. I think he is one of the only people who has made a film that has been successful with all different kinds of audiences and has also, I think, really faithfully represented something fundamental about racial trauma.
Oh, God. What do you know about racial trauma? The only thing you know is what you've been told. You never actually experienced it or suffered. These people taking credit of trauma for something that never happened to them. They were even born then. Like, seriously.
The reason why he's able to put Chris Washington, played by Daniel Kaluuya, through so much shit and Get Out is because through the manipulation of genre, Peele signals to us that he values Chris as a character and as a representation of a Black experience. But Get Out's not my favorite film because I have to tell you that my favorite film is, maybe of all time, is a comedy called Blazing Saddles,
Of course.
which I think often catches people off guard. And it would also probably catch them off guard if they knew it was my parents' favorite film, because my parents grew up in the US in a time when they weren't allowed to eat in diners with their white friends.
I press X to doubt. Hold on, I need to do this. X to doubt.
But the reason I love it is that beyond some truly classic Mel Brooksian slapstick humor and fart jokes, Blazing Saddles is extremely aware of social inequality and finds its humor in that darkness, which means I can laugh in a way that is cathartic. It's a movie that isn't making jokes about me, but for me.
Of course, again with how he feels. It's all about him. Please know that he is a very narcissistic person, how he expresses all his views in first person, but never considering the views of others. He just cares about how he feels.
And I think that's really awesome because you can tell just in the text, but it's also a fact that Brooks worked with Black writers to make sure the jokes came at the expense of whiteness and chipped
And there we go. More white hatred. Is this guy like, hold on, I want to know something. Is he what I think it is? Chris Cameron Wild. Wiki. Let's see. Cameron. Okay, what is this? Uh, Cameron claims to be no more. He waited. Okay, so basically anybody that said anything different got deleted. Hmm. All right.
away at an absurd social hierarchy. It's deliberately and unexpectedly maybe a narrative that contributes to the liberation of people
I'm
like me.
drinking some tea right now.
It isn't respectful. It's offensive. Yeah, but it offends the right people.
Offends the right people, so as long as it doesn't offend your race, you're fine with it. You see what we're talking? You see what we're looking at? If that's not racism, I don't know what is.
Which is to me the point of truly incisive, intentional genre work.
No, that's just being an asshole for assholes' sakes.
Which brings me
What is sensitivity rating, or what I call it, aka pussify readers?
back to the aim of this talk. So, in my work in narrative, we're often tasked with quote unquote sensitivity reading, a term we frankly don't really love because despite its
Oh, come on. Are you serious? You people do that all the time. It's your bread and butter.
huge importance, sensitivity reading is often seen as reductive and flattening. In the most frustrating cases, I know that I, a Black non binary person,
I, a black non-binary person. Again, with it, me, I, like he's something important, like what his opinion should matter to anybody. I mean, you are listening to him, you are hearing his speech pattern, the way he's speaking.
is going to be seen as someone looking to reduce quote unquote offense, basically a buzz killer. They assume that I'm going to want less violence, less discomfort, or some kind of coddled, boring, or nice story, when actually it's really the opposite.
No, it's not. It's never not. It's never the opposite. No. We already seen enough of the games that you people peddle. And no, it's not. The disdain I have for you and people like you and people who do work like yours, it's immeasurable. If I could speak Eldritch languages, I would use it to say how much I loathe people like you. You don't do anything positive to video games or to humanity. You're just pathetic.
The purpose of sensitivity work is not to tell easy stories or boring stories.
It is always easy and boring. I mean, look at Justice League kill the Justice League. They kill the game. It could have been something greater, but nope, because lol, chuds lose.
It's to tell stories that resonate.
Oh, really? Can somebody please explain me how does the comic Harley Quinn Fartstackler resonates with anybody other with people who have a scat fetish or smell fetish? Anybody? Like, come on, people. All right, so, huh. This is very interesting. All right. So, I'm gonna have to link this over to my Twitter. So, I'm gonna get in trouble for this video. All right, hold on. All right, just sharing it to some friends. All right, close all. There you go.
That fire people up and excite them, take them on journeys. It's to ensure that we tell stories that are big and loud and scary and subversive, but
It's never that way.
that we do so with authenticity and that we get to the heart of an audience.
You get into the hatred of the audience. You people can't do good movies or games.
Because ultimately, if you're telling a story that misses its audience, that doesn't ring true, or that fails to cut in the right direction, the problem isn't that it's just insensitive. The problem is it's bad.
Pot, kettle, black. And no, that wasn't a joke at his race.
Like a film called Django Unchained.
And now he's gonna complain about a great movie.
So I'm going to take a moment to pause and offer an apology. This isn't the topic that I
Oh,
pitched, which isn't to say anyone should panic, but it's that when I wrote up my outline, I had a whole plan that I was going to take note and get out and approach this by talking about horror and the ways Jordan Peele and others have really nailed it, alongside a few examples of how movies like Django Unchained have fallen short. If you haven't seen Django Unchained, I guess like congratulations to you. But it's about an enslaved black man played by Jamie Foxx, rescued from slavery by a white bounty hunter played by Christoph Waltz. And through the course of the film, he learns, I don't know, some stuff, I guess. And then he ostensibly gets his revenge on white supremacy or whatever.
that's not white supremacy. He is getting his revenge on the people who wrong him. And he says whatever because it doesn't matter to him. Because he didn't care much about the movie. He didn't analyze the movie. He just didn't feel that the movie spoke to him, whatever that means.
which on paper sounds like a premise that could make for maybe some brilliant genre storytelling. And I'm sure many people, Quentin Tarantino in particular, uh, feel like it's a liberatory masterwork. But when I sat down to rewatch it, I realized how boring it is.
Oh, freaking course, the snowflake will find it boring. These people, they couldn't find it entertaining even if they beat their non-binary asses.
Not only boring, but it's a perfect example of what not to do with genre. So I'm sorry, because I will talk about how to do it right. But before that, I'm going to have to talk about how Django Unchained and Quentin Tarantino in particular get it so wrong.
Why is it wrong? Just because you don't like it or you didn't like the message they gave? You're not an authority on this. This is just your opinion. So I don't know why this guy is acting like he all high and mighty. Look at his expressions. He feels offended, and quite frankly, he is being stupid. Look at it. He's reading the screen. You can see his pupils move, the irises move, his whole eyes move left and right, scanning the screen.
Because in my work, I meet a lot of Tarantino's. These are people who say, I want this to be gritty, dark, or edgy. And they have this obsession with edginess.
Yeah, and they do a good work. That's why Tarantino movies are amazing.
Sort of a context free version of art is supposed to make people uncomfortable. As an auteur, Quentin Tarantino feels like someone who grasps after edginess when they don't really have any human tragedy to explore the depths of.
Has he not seen many Tarantino movies? This guy has a lot of screwed loose. This kind of person, like, he just talks right out his ass and whatever. There's no analysis, no profoundness of what he says. He's just spewing out bullshit. You can literally say, look at his mannerism in his face. Look at the way his face moves, like when he says stuff. And you'll see the micro expressions.
They don't understand that growth comes from trauma, sure, but it also
Growth doesn't come from trauma. Trauma can help to make growth, but most of the time it prevents it because trauma sometimes makes people get stuck in the past.
comes from joy. He holds a no pain, no gain kind of mentality
In my cases, what doesn't kill me disappoints me.
that I think is unshakably rooted in white supremacist.
How is that white supremacist? Black people used to think that too, back in the Jim Crow era and later on. Modern black people have lost their manliness. They get afraid when they put like a big black guy, like what was the name of this guy in Final Fantasy VII? You don't know what I'm talking about. Like they decided to make him more effeminate, more soft-spoken, but still retain a little bit of the edginess, but it's not the same. This is never the same. These people, they're too emotionally weak.
Patriarchal values.
Pretty sure you're a guy. I mean, you can identify as non-binary, but that's just like me saying that I identify as a Apache attack helicopter. It's meaningless in the end. You're either man or a woman. What you self-identify is meaningless because you're not important enough to tell anybody else how to um, call you or view you as. You are what you are. That's it. Some people need to learn that. I know I'm coming out as a bit of an asshole here, but things have to be said.
And in that, we come to the first lesson Django teaches us about genre. If you want to be edgy, realize that it's meaningless unless you yourself are taking risks.
Isn't Tarantino basically putting his name, his money, into the movie. So if it flops, it's literally his name that's going down.
If you are a person with power and privilege, you're only taking a risk if you're challenging the structures that gave you that power and privilege in the first place. By creating Django Unchained, Tarantino has challenged nothing about himself.
What do you risk? You're not risking anything.
Lesson one: good genre starts with representation on the creative team.
No, he doesn't. Good genre starts when the people do a good work when writing a story.
The foundations of the project must be solid. Genre is incompatible with the death of the author. In Tarantino's
Huh?
case, the man seems to thrive on people hating him, and so I don't hate him.
Yes, you do because you're talking crap about him. Look at your expression. You're feeling disgust. You're feeling a lot of things, negative emotions. So, yes, yes, you do. You're a very lousy liar, too, so I don't know where you learn your acting from. But you're not convincing anybody, especially me.
But I do think his work needs to be critiqued out of existence, and that he specifically has to be addressed in any discussion of that work. Because Tarantino is capable of genre filmmaking, but the genre he's chosen with Django is black exploitation.
Oh, freaking course, like exploitation.
And why? I have my own pet theories. Personally, I think that it's the same thing we see with any non Black creator who thinks that Black people are cool, but can't really examine the covetous nature of their feelings,
What the hell is he talking about? A lot of white people make very good black characters. Why is he always like so fixated on black versus white?
or their
Oh, before anybody says that, oh yeah, you're white, that's why you're siding with white people. No, I'm not. I'm Latin American. From South America, actually.
own role in Black stories. People who in life met a Black person that they either wanted to follow, fuck, or befriend and
Of course.
never resolved it.
Yeah, don't worry. Nobody wants to do that with you, buddy.
The equivalent of a boy pulling a little girl's pigtails, but
No, it's not.
it's a white filmmaker in black pain.
No, it's not.
So, lesson two: to make good genre, the emotion of the story and the challenges of it must be known to the author, or else whatever emerges from it will be empty. All flash and gore and no substance.
There's a lot of substance in Tarantino movies. What are you talking about?
But for the people watching today, that's rarely the problem, right? We're the people who probably said those first two things or fought for them. So, with those two lessons established outside of the story, then I want to dive into the meat of it. No more premeditation. It's time to do a murder. Assuming that you are the right storyteller, that you're in the room, that you're looking down the barrel of a narrative project you want to turn into a throat-ripping genre story,
Look at the violence in his vocabulary.
we can now go back to our three pillars of genre: identity, text and tropes,
You don't need identity.
and power. So, coming in from the outside, identity matters in the story as much as it does out.
No, no, it doesn't. You don't need identity for any of this kind of crap. That just dilutes it.
In Django Unchained, it's clear in many ways that we're not meant to identify with Django, but to watch him.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason that it's a movie.
The point of view character feels as though it's Schultz. We see this in Schultz getting the best lines, the most direct and meaningful confrontations with the main villain, the best coolest and most meaningful death, and also the moral high ground. Because whereas Django comes to his rebellion due to his own personal suffering, Schultz gets to pontificate about right and wrong as a means to prove that he's an evolved man. And it results in a movie called Django Unchained, where the titular character never actually feels unleashed.
Yeah, he's unleashed from his captors. It doesn't mean he's gonna go ape shit into everybody, but
He never goes off the chain.
he is not supposed to.
Instead, he is literally and flatly unchained by a white man named Dr. King. I'm just going to leave that one alone.
Yeah, so many things.
But I think it should be obvious why I think that was a terrible idea. In this way, Tarantino fails again, I think, and we have to look to a winner to learn the lesson why. Yeah, it's Blazing Saddles.
Uh,
So, which I want
you can literally tell the bias from those people.
to use to illustrate the next lesson. In good genre, the identity of your characters, specifically your heroes, has to define their challenges in the narrative, but it also has to define their triumphs.
All right.
Blazing Saddles does this by allowing Sheriff Bart's unique perspective, hard won by being exactly who he is, to save the day. And much like Django, it presents some unpleasant realities, but it subverts them and allows its black characters to come out on top in the narrative, even if they don't necessarily always come out on top in the story. It's why Mel Brooks can play with a laundry list of otherwise offensive material, characters who say the N word, and a Klan rally in which both of the heroes participate, to name just a few. And when I talk about the difference between narrative and story, I mean that a story can end, for example, with a character who is broke but happy. And while we understand that in the story it's not great to be broke, we can still leave it joyously because we understand through the narrative that money isn't what the character needed. Which brings me to texts and tropes. Because to really do genre right, you need to be able to convey both narrative and story through the tropes you're employing, the aesthetic form and the conventions of the genre you're working in. Every genre has a history and a canon, a collection of references and narrative structures that make it what it is. That's why a space opera feels like a space opera, because there are bits and pieces that resonate with our understanding of genre convention. Django claims to be a Western and a blaxploitation film, but doesn't really succeed at either.
Why? He doesn't give any explanation of it, and I seen the movie, and I think it's a wonderful film.
Django fails to fulfill the role of a hero or even a tortured hero.
He is not supposed to be a hero. He's just an everyday man that snapped, and he finally got free and got his revenge. He's not a hero. He would all be considered an anti-hero, if anything.
Like the ones well established, like Clint Eastwood. And Django is never fully allowed to revel in his own capacity for violence the way that you would expect of a blaxploitation film. Yeah, he blows some people away, but only after he's given permission by Schultz's heroic act. At the end of the film, we don't get either a commentary on the simplistic morality of westerns and blaxploitation, or a satisfying rendering of justice. Yes, Django finds his wife, and she rides silently, I might add, by his side off into the night. But what he needed was to find his people.
No, he didn't. The whole thing was a revenge trip. Why do you give your this should be being done this way? If you want something done your way, do your own thing.
And at every turn, instead, he left them in despair to fend for themselves, or shot them, or had them killed while he watched.
Because they are not his priorities. You think that somebody has to sacrifice? Nobody likes a martyr. Nobody likes the thorny path of a martyr. But you think that, oh, because they're black, they have to suffer for each other and protect each other. No, that's not human nature. Human nature is ugly, it's gritty, it's disgusting sometimes. I mean, you look at yourself in the mirror, man. You should know that better than anybody else.
To recognize that Tarantino isn't really delivering on the genre he claims, we can look at Blazing Saddles again. Blazing Saddles is also doing double genre duty as a Western and a comedy. And obviously, it's Mel Brooks, so the comedy is on point. But what often gets ignored is that it's also a really solid Western. It features a classic love story between a lonesome cowboy and his sidekick, but where historically the casting would have been reversed, in Blazing Saddles, Gene Wilder's character is playing support class perfectly, using his whiteness as a shield and a decoy when necessary, but never for personal gain over Bart.
Yeah, because that's how they like the white people, subservient.
It also uses the trope of the ignorant townsfolk to lampoon racists, not, and this is important, racism itself, but the people and mentality behind it. And although the words aren't made overt, it tells us that there's quote unquote a new sheriff in town. And I believe that meta commentary is intentional. The new Sheriff Bart is black. And so I believe Mel Brooks was saying is part of our future. Not exclusively, but meaningfully enough to make this film still feel relevant and subversive today.
It's not really subversive. It just feels
And so in
like
that way, I think
it's an
it
ego
honors its
boost.
genres more than a film that otherwise feels like it's doing genre cosplay. So good genre understands that it earns its freedom from knowing its boundaries, and it uses its aesthetic language to honor, reference, and subvert context. Good genre understands that it earns its freedom from knowing its boundaries, and it uses its aesthetic language to honor, reference, and subvert convention. Texts and tropes are key. Now, the final piece, maybe the biggest failing of Django Unchained as a genre film, is power. And I'll get to the lesson early because good genre must consider its relationship to power. That is true of horror, science fiction, of superhero movies, and it's incredibly true of blaxploitation films, and more granularly of a subgenre, a cursed subgenre within blaxploitation called slave exploitation, which honestly sucks to even have to say, but it is what Django Unchained both aims and claims to be. And so it nails the exploitation, providing graphic imagery, brutal violence, and gore, but it fails to be about blackness or about
Yeah, because the thing is not about blackness, it's about the revenge of Django. But he wants to make it about blackness. It's not, it's just a man on a mission to get revenge. But apparently, that's not really that good for him.
slavery because it wants to point at the wrong thing. In a scene
What is the wrong thing? Can you explain? No. And if you notice, he will never do so.
where the KKK are shown to be a crew of bumbling idiots, we get a feeling that Tarantino is almost there and capable of some genuinely good comedy. But even in reducing such an iconic avatar of racism to a bunch of fools, we're made to feel that racism itself feels silly to Tarantino.
Racism is silly. All races are horrible. There's no inherent better race. Although some people of the black community are proving that otherwise, or the Middle Eastern as well. There are slight differences. However, they're all horrible.
But he hasn't earned the right to laugh.
And who are you to say that he hasn't? And who is the one able to say so? If you are not the one in the position to say so, you should shut up.
Django Unchained treats racism and slavery as that silly little thing we did in the 19th century.
It's a silly thing. It was horrible, but it was silly. All humans are created equal. You know, the funny thing is, I don't see people, I don't care about their races. I care about how much of a pain in the ass they are. And most of them, well, they're kind of equal. So it's very hard for me to tell people apart. They're all pain in the ass.
Even its plantation owning villain, Calvin Candy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, feels custom built to resonate rather than disgust.
Yeah, because they're trying to show how it was. Not all villains have to look gross. And besides, plantation owners had more money, therefore they could afford better care, so therefore they'll look better. It's not much of a stretch in logic. But these people, they don't care about logic.
And I don't mean charm. A charming, deeply racist villain is a great character because often the face of racism is charming. We should feel taken in because that is what power does. But the structural disempowerment of slavery should have been sufficient to carry the notion of upending power in the story.
Hmm?
Everything Django does should be about allowing him to earn what Candy has so he can take him out. But he's never given that power. He's never
Because he is a freed slave. And he is in an area in the era of United States that black people were enslaved. And if they were found without a master, they were enslaved again and sold. So yeah, that would be impossible so long as he was in that part of the United States, which was where the movie starts. However, he cleverly, quote unquote, decides not to talk about the little tidbit because obviously, why will truth matter when they can push their own agenda?
raised to that level of ability or importance. Instead, he waits for a white man to get there first, time and time again,
Because back then, you had it was like in the Middle East where women cannot walk outside without a male companion.
which is to say nothing of the hatred he shows for his own people the moment that he gains power over them. A hatred that is obviously rooted in white supremacy.
No, it's rooted on him being tortured and enslaved.
So the perspective of who is the hero, where power sits in the world, and how our choices affect our power is totally blurred. And so I would argue everything about power in Django Unchained is wrong. In which
You argue, but you don't present any points that prove that you may be right or wrong. You're just saying, I feel, I believe, but there's nothing that says otherwise.
case, what's the point? What's the point of making a film like that? And this is where some of the hardest conversations I have at my job exist.
Really? Your people are like literally all of you, like one giant brain cell sharing entity.
Arguably, this movie should never have existed because the truth is, some stories are not yours to tell. Unless you're willing to step out of the limelight as a white person, you aren't equipped to tell a story about a Black experience. However, if you are willing to put your own ego aside, well, then you can go ahead and make Blazing Saddles.
And what about yours? I don't think my laptop is literally overhearing with your ego's weight.
Something great. This is the last time, I promise.
No, it's not.
But it's because what Mel Brooks did as the director was ask, what is a pain point for the Black community? What kind of films are they specifically
I mean, just look at BET. That should give you an idea.
excluded from so that America can get on with the business of telling grandiose narratives about itself? What would it mean if white people used their privilege to do what was needed rather than what would make them feel exceptional? And the answer, I think, is pretty cool stuff. We would get pretty cool stuff. That said, just like Sheriff Bart, we don't have to wait to be given permission to seek our own liberation.
Mhm.
So, a couple of words about the road ahead before I close. As one game dev of color to another. The reality is that almost all of us exist and are working on problematic things
Yeah, problematic because you feel it is, not because it is.
with problematic people and problematic
Have you seen yourself in the mirror?
environments.
Have you seen yourself in the mirror? You people, like, hold on. Let's rewind a little bit. That's 25. Huh?
To tell stories
I mean, seriously, burning the game industry to the ground. Seriously? Right there.
in games simply don't know how, which is fine. So, just a note, if there are any Indigenous folks who are watching this and would love to write a talk of their own from their perspective but need a little help, hit me up. I'll be your Waco kid.
No. Anybody that's currently watching it and is an indigenous American, do not trust this man. He will ruin you.
So, while I'm coming to accept that we're not out of the woods, keeping the lessons outlined in this presentation in mind has been helpful for me in staying clear on my narrative goals in genre and also advocating for them to others. Because the truth is, when genre is defined so much by feeling, by gut and emotional resonance, we often know what's right, but we need to be able to explain it to those who might not,
Feelings, really.
and those who might not trust us.
I would like to say I trust you as far as I can throw you, but I'm pretty sure I can throw you very far. So no.
I've been met with defensiveness, hostility, resentment, jealousy, and worst of all, indifference.
Have you seen yourself? Have you heard yourself? Have you seen your work? It's not people that hate you because of what you are, it's for what you do.
But having a framework for my approach has been really helpful, and that's what I'm hoping to pass on. So let's review. Lesson one, good genre starts with representation on the creative team. The foundations of the project
Oh, more murder stuff. Premeditation, premeditated murder, execution, of freaking
have to be
course.
solid. Lesson two, to make good genre, the emotion of the story and the challenges of it must be known to the author, or else whatever emerges from it will be empty, all flash and gore and no substance. Lesson three, in good genre, the identity of your characters, specifically your heroes, must define their challenges in the narrative, and it must also define their triumphs.
Not really.
Lesson four, good genre understands that it earns its freedom from knowing its boundaries, and it uses its aesthetic language to honor, reference, and subvert convention. Text and trope are key. Lesson
Hmm.
five, good genre must consider its relationship to power.
What do you mean?
I think there's also a secret sixth lesson, which is don't do this alone. Make sure you have an accomplice or two to ride off into the sunset with. Good luck doing your murder. Um,
Please note, don't commit murder. This guy has no idea what he's saying. He's just been talking a lot of bull crap. All he's done, literally, is just mudsling at other people. But he gave literally no solutions whatsoever. He just scoffed and was derisive. How he's still working, I can only imagine.
if anyone would love to get in touch, you can reach me at talk at Sleep Baby Inc. Or on Twitter. Sweet Baby also does portfolio reviews for
Never send your portfolio SBI because it will be tainted. People don't want to work with them anymore, and for very good reasons. Many, several reasons. A lot of games like flop because of them. If you don't trust me, you can do your own research.
marginalized folks in the games industry and a little bit of career consulting.
Marginalized people. Okay, let's do this. Okay. Uh, how many people go into actually being a game developer and designers? Most of them usually were male and white people and straight people. However, because things happen, they decided that they have to fill a quota of minority people. First it was racial, and now it was gender and ideology. Now we have people like this thing here, this absolute unit of an idiot that says you have to do things this way because minorities matter. Look, the thing is, and this is going to hurt a lot of people emotionally, and I frankly don't care, but it's going to have to be said. There's a reason why it's called minority. They're less than. And I don't mean as people, I don't mean it's an insult. I mean there are less than the others, like numerically speaking. So, if I'm doing a game, am I going to cater to a minority of people or to a majority of people? I'm trying to make money. So the answer would be simple. I will cater to what brings me the most money. However, these people are also against capitalism because people have to have their feelings prioritized over anything else, which is completely ridiculous. Your feelings shouldn't matter or of what a person does with their own product or with their own intellectual property. But these people, they force their way into it because they feel like they're entitled. Nobody's entitled to anything. Just let gamers be gamers. We all just want to bitch out, enjoy a game, because that's literally one of the few pleasures a person gets in life. But no, these people, they have to have control over it. They don't want you to enjoy yourself. They want you to look at them. That's why they always saying representation. I want to be seen. They have one whole month of the year. How many days does Veterans Day last? Newsflash is not more than a day. Is there a straight day? Of freaking course there's not. Even Man's Day scoff and look derisively like, why do cisgender white male need Man Day? Like, seriously? Cisgender? Just say it what it is. Actual men. Just plain men. Just like they are plain women. Anyways,
So if that's something that you're interested in, shoot an email to that address. Thanks for watching.
I feel like I lost so much time of my life looking at this. I have never felt a more visceral need to throw up. Okay. And delete that. And delete uh, this. All right. With that said, that will be the end of this video. So now we are in the talking section. Hold on. First, I'm gonna. mhm, And this a little bit here and a little bit over here. There we go. So, what have we learned? Oh, sorry. This kind of people, they don't care about video games. They just care about being quote unquote seen. They don't care about any other feeling but their own. So why the hell do people keep giving them the time of the day? I am of the idea that third people should not be listened to or looked at. Just show apathy. It's the best way to deal with this kind of people. They don't deserve anything at all. Like the worst thing you can do is give them your apathy. Like literally feel nothing to them. That's even worse than showing them disdain. If they don't matter to you, they literally die. In your mind, of course, but still they feel like it's an attack to them. Still, people will hate this video. People will attack this, but I don't care. Some things need to be said. Anyways, I know this has been a short stream. Thank you very much for joining me here today. Tomorrow I'll be returning once more to my original videos, and tomorrow I'll be doing some more Skyrim. Thank you very much and have a good one. Good night, everybody.